got me Twitch playing here. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, it's coffee time, isn't it? Oh, who's it? Oh, Vay, Serapho. I haven't seen you for a bit. Thank you for attending. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Aww. Thank you, Tasty, in my chat. Thank you. I took quite a bit of a break. I bought a new computer, and now my avatar can actually move around like this. Isn't it great? And I can do my I can also do my super angry red face. Yeah. What do you think? This is how I look like when I raid. It's very, very accurate, actually. Actually, very accurate. Sugoi. Hontoni sugoi desu ne. How's everyone doing over the weekend? I'm so glad that Keiko doesn't need to leave. You know? This is my red face. This is my happy face. Today is happy face, alright? I'm so glad that Keiko can stay in here. And I'm so happy that we don't have to. I love to see you here. I really do. Believe it or not, but I really do love to see you all here. All of you, really. All of you. And I'm missing Vay as well. Vay has been catching up with me a lot on the Twitter, and I've been like checking out Twitter every day. I just took a break basically because I was like a bit burnt out and tired, and I just wanted to play the game as it is for a while at least. And then also I was like having like a lot of trouble with my previous PC. At first, I think maybe Keiko doesn't know this, but yeah, I tried to the plan was to not to just change the CPU, but the CPU is so expensive nowadays, and my motherboard was so old that it just doesn't make sense, to get an old CPU for an old motherboard. So I might as well just get a completely new one. It's quite beefy. I don't know what I can do with it, but hey, at least I can stream nicely now. My avatar can make happy faces. I can move around a little bit, you know. Hello there. Hello there. It's Mia Melange. It's my first time seeing you here, I believe. Thank you for dropping by. Yeah, do come over to my Twitch channel now, so that because we are gonna start reading soon. Yes, usually I have a little talk in the beginning until like 11 past 11, and then I'll start reading. For now, I'm just chatting with everyone. How's everyone doing? Keiko, I know you're very happy to stay. How's Vera Serafall doing? I see that you have the new raid here. I am so jealous. I'm trying my best to get it, but I got legs from my dancer and my aiming legs instead. But I welcome the change. My bard and dancer needs a better gear, definitely. And yeah, it's all good. hope everyone is. She copied you first. You got it first. I couldn't wear it. I understand that feeling. I farmed for the Cape of Happiness. Like I was like so dead set on not buying the Cape of Happiness. I just wanted to get it through doing maps, and I farmed for it, and then I got the Cape of Happiness made, right? And then after that, my one of my friend was like, I bought the Cape of Happiness. I want to wear it, and I was like, I don't really want to like play matchy matchy with you, so so I didn't wear it for the longest time. But guess what? I'm wearing it again. Hell yeah! It's mine now. Yeah, CPU is so stupidly expensive nowadays. Hello, Sarah Bay, in my stream. Thank you so much once again for being here. Ah, you got your first relic? Nice. Omedeto. Hontoni. Oh, Cape of Happiness is truly S tier. It's so good. It's so adventure. Like it matches like the idea of being an adventurer so well that it's so silly. It's amazing, really. Oh, that looks so cool, Keiko. That's amazing. Wow. Ah, that looks insanely cool. Oh, I'm so lazy to farm for relics. I just use whatever that's like good in the market bot. I'm absolutely lazy. But yeah, do check out channel points and all that. There are such certain things that you can claim from watching the channel. Oh yeah, Keiko. I don't know if you realize, but I'm an affiliate now on Twitch. I forgot if you were here when we announced it. I think you were here and I was crying. I remember. How embarrassing. Alrighty, we have about 8 viewers in the stream right now. Oh no, Keiko, my memory is absolutely terrible as well. So don't worry about it. Seriously, don't worry about it. Give me a second. I think I forgot to set something on my. Um, mm. Need to set something. Alright, I got it now. Oh, hey! Everyone's wearing the new raid gear. I'm so jealous. I couldn't get it because I was an idiot. I went for aiming legs instead. But you know what? You guys can be special now. I'll be special later. It's okay. No, Sarah Vey sounds great. Actually, I really like the name Sarah Vey. This is good, actually. Oh, you were a cat. You was a cat now, Femra. Oh, it's a really cat. Cool. Keiko's forcing everyone to stop wearing it. Okay, guys. One sip of coffee and tea, and I shall be start. I shall be reading soon. Just give me one moment, please. One moment, please. Okay. Okay, pick your most comfortable seat or position, and I'll be reading soon. Unfortunately, Keiko had to didn't get to listen to the first two videos, first two readings of Kokoro, but you can always go back to watch my VOD, uh, which is all saved up in the category under Noodibles as of now. Okay? Okay. I shall start reading now. We are currently reading Kokoro by Natsume Sōseki under the chapter My Parents and I. It was obvious that my father was afraid of his illness, but he tried to keep his fears to himself, and whenever the doctor came, he did not bother him with senseless questions. The doctor, in his turn, remained discreetly silent. My father seemed to be thinking about what would happen after his death. It was apparent, at least, that he often tried to picture himself, life in the house with him gone. You know, he once said to me, there are advantages and disadvantages in having one's children educated. You take the trouble to give them an education, and when they are through with their education, they go away and never come home. Why? You can almost say that education is a means of separating children from their parents. Indeed, it was because my elder brother had received a university education that he had gone away to a distant province. I, too, because of my education, had resolved to live in Tokyo. It was not unreasonable, then, that my father should complain about his children. No doubt, it was very sad for him to imagine my mother left all alone in the country house where he had lived for so many years. For him, the house was his family, and he would never have contemplated living anywhere else. He took it for granted, too, that my mother would remain there until she died. The thought, therefore, of my mother living in solitude. Sorry. The thought, therefore, of my mother living in solitude in the big house gave him considerable anxiety. That he should at the same time insist on my going to Tokyo to find a decent position struck me as being inconsistent. This inconsistency on his part amused me. Also, I welcome it, since I could go to Tokyo with his full approval. I dared say, I dared not allow my father and mother to think that I was not trying hard to find a post. I wrote to Sensei and explained the situation at home, and I said that I was willing to do any kind of work so long as I was qualified for it, and asked him to help me find an opening somewhere. I wrote the letter believing that Sensei would take no notice of my request. Besides, I thought to myself, even if he wished to help me, he could do very little since he led such a secluded life. I was certain that he would not answer my letter. Therefore, I sealed the letter and went up to my mother and said, "See, I have written a letter to Sensei as you suggested. Won't you read it?" As I had expected, my mother did not read the letter. "Is that so?" she said. "In that case, you had better post it at once. You should have written it much sooner. One shouldn't have to be prodded to do these things." My mother still treated me like a child. To be truthful, I did feel rather childish then. "I should warn you, however," I said, "that merely writing a letter won't be enough. I must go up to Tokyo, perhaps in September." "That may be so, but it never does any harm to write to one's friends first. How do you know they won't suddenly find something for you?" "Yes, of course." "Well, let us talk about it again when I get a letter from Sensei. He is sure to write to me." I believed that in such a matter Sensei would be quite conscientious. I waited confidently, therefore, to hear from him. But I was disappointed. A whole week passed and there was no letter. "He has probably gone away on holiday," I said to my mother, feeling that I should offer some sort of excuse for Sensei's silence. It was not only my mother but myself also that I was trying to convince. For my own peace of mind, I had to explain to myself that Sensei would not have ignored my request without a good reason. Sometimes I would forget my father's illness and toy with the idea of leaving immediately for Tokyo. My father too seemed occasionally forget that he was ill, and though he was not unaware of the need to set his affairs in order before his death, he did not think about it. No opportunity ever arose for me to approach him about my share of the estate as Sensei had advised. Finally, at the beginning of September, I decided to go to Tokyo. I asked my father if he would continue sending me the allowance that I had received when I was at the university. "I must go," I said, "if I am to find the kind of job that you have in mind for me." I made it seem as though I wished to go to Tokyo merely to realize my father's hope for me. Of course, I want the allowance only until I find a job. Secretly, I felt there was little chance of my finding a decent position. But my father, who was somewhat removed from the realities of the world outside, firmly believed otherwise. "All right. Since it will be only for a short time, I see that you get your allowance. But only for a short time, mind. You must become independent as soon as you find employment. It really isn't right that one should immediately after graduating live on others. It would seem that the younger generation today knows only how to spend. It doesn't seem to occur to them that money has to be made too." He said other things in his lecture to me, among them being, "In my days, parents were supported by their children. Today, the children are supported forever by their parents." I listened carefully. At last, the lecture seemed to be over, and I was about to get up when my father asked me when I intended to leave. I said that I should go as soon as possible. "Ask your mother to choose a propitious day for your departure then," said my father. "Yes, I'll do that," I said. "One moment, please. I would like to adjust my seating position." Ooh, you read my mind. I did hydrate, Exia. I did. Alright then. I was being unusually obedient. I did not want to anger my father before leaving home. His last words to me before I left the room were, "With you gone, this house will seem lonely again. There will be no one but your mother and myself. I wish my health were better. As it is, one cannot tell what will happen." I comforted my father as well as I could, and then went back to my desk. I sat down amongst my books, which were scattered all over the floor, and for a long time I thought about my father's plaintive words and the sadness in his eyes as he said them. I could hear the cicadas singing outside. These were different from those that I heard in the early part of summer. These were the little ones, the tsuku tsuku boshi. Every summer when I was home for the holidays, I would often sit and listen to the piercing song of the cicadas and find myself falling into a strange, sorrowful mood. It was as if sorrow crept into my heart with the cry of these insects. And I would stay absolutely still, thinking of my own loneliness. But that summer, the nature of my melancholy seems gradually change. I thought often of the fate of those that I knew, and often I wondered whether it was not like that of the large cicadas of early summers, which had so soon been replaced by the Tsukutsukuboshi. I thought of my sorrowing father and then Sensei, who had not answered my letter. It was natural that I should associate the two in my thoughts. The contrast between the two of them was so sharp that I could not think of one without thinking of the other. There was little that I did not know about my father. The regret I would feel if we were parted would be no more than of any son who was born of their father. On the other hand, there was so much I did not know about Sensei, and he had not yet told me about his past as he promised. In short, Sensei still remained for me a figure half hidden in the shadows. I could not be content until he was fully revealed to me.
Stretch!
That was a good stretch. Thank you, Sarah Bay. I could not bear the thought of being parted from him before then. My mother consulted the calendar, and we decided on the propitious day for my departure. Suggestive Nuna stretch? What? I just stretched. It was, I think, 2 days before I was due to leave that my father fainted once more. It was evening, and I had just finished roping up my trunk, which was filled with books and clothing. My father had gone to take his bath. My mother, who had followed him to scrub his back, suddenly called to me in a loud voice. I found my father lying in my mother's arm, but as soon as he was back in his room, he said, "I'm all right now." I sat down by his bed, however, cooled his forehead with a wet cloth. It was 9 o'clock before I was able to take a light snack in lieu of the dinner I had missed. The next day he seemed better than we expected. Taking no notice of our remonstrances, he walked to the bathroom alone. "I'm all right now," he would repeatedly say to me, as he had done in the previous winter. Then he had been more or less all right as he claimed. I thought hopefully that he might be proved right once more. Despite persistent questioning, however, the doctor would tell me nothing except that the constant care was necessary. The day which had been fixed for my departure arrived, but through my anxiety for my father, I decided to postpone my trip to Tokyo. I think I'll stay until things are more certain, I said to my mother. Yes, please do, she said imploringly. When my father had shown himself well enough to wander about the garden or the backyard, my mother had been unduly optimistic, but now she was more worried and more nervous than I thought necessary. Were you not going to Tokyo today? Asked my father later that day. Yes, but I've decided to stay a little longer. Because of me? He asked. I hesitated for a moment. If I said yes, I would be admitting that I thought his condition was serious. I wanted to spare his feelings if I could, but he seemed to read my thoughts. I am sorry, he said and turned towards the garden. I went back to my room and stared at the trunk lying on the floor. It was tightly bound, all ready for my journey. I stood before it for a while, wondering vaguely if I should start unpacking. 3 or 4 days went by. I was in such an unsettled frame of mind that I felt rather like a man who was neither sitting down nor standing up. My father then fainted again. This time, the doctor ordered absolutely quiet. What are we going to do? Said my mother in almost a whisper so that my father would not hear. She looked rather frightened and helpless. I was prepared to send a telegram to my elder brother and younger sister, but my father, who was now confined to his bed, seemed hardly to be suffering at all. To look at him and to hear him chatting, one would have said that he had nothing more serious than a cold. Moreover, his appetite was even better than usual. He would not listen to us whenever we warned him against overeating. I'm going to die anyway, he once said. I might as well eat all the delicacies while I can. My father's idea of a delicacy struck me as being at once comic and pathetic. He was not a townsman, and so did not know what real delicacies were. Often, late at night, he would ask my mother for grilled rice cake and eat it with gusto. I wonder why he's always so parched, my mother said. It may very well be that there is still some strength left in him. My poor mother had chosen the gravest of symptoms on the day to pin his hopes. He had, however, said parched, a word which was used in the old days means hungry as well as thirsty, but only applied to sick people. When my uncle called, my father would not let him go. He wished him to stay, mostly because he was lonely. Of course, but I suspected that he wanted someone to complain about our reluctance to give him the kind of food that he craved. My father's condition remained the same for a week or so. During that time, I wrote a long letter to my brother in Kyushu. I had my mother write to my sister. I thought that this would probably be the last time we would be writing them about my father's health. For this reason, I saw to it that they would be warned that the next time they receive any communication from us, it would be in the form of a telegram asking them to come home. My brother was a busy man. My sister was with a child. We could not therefore We could therefore not expect them to come home unless my father's condition became really serious. On the other hand, we did not want them to go to all the trouble of coming to see him only to find out that they are too late. No one knew how much I worried over the problem of when to send the telegrams. I cannot tell you precisely when the crisis will come, said the doctor whom we had brought in from the nearest big town. All I can say is that it may come any time. After talking it over with my mother, I decided to ask the doctor to send us a reliable nurse from the town hospital. The nurse arrived dressed in her white uniform, and when she presented herself to my father, he looked at her rather strangely. My father had known for some time that his disease was fatal, but when at last death was very close, he seemed unable to recognize it. When I am better, he said, I must go to Tokyo once more and enjoy myself. Who knows when any of us will die? We should do all the things we want to do while we can. There was nothing that my mother could say except, when you go, please take me with you. But sometimes my father would be very sad and say, when I die, please look after your mother. I was then reminded of that evening at Sensei's house just after I had graduated, when Sensei had repeatedly used the phrase when I die in his wife's presence. And I remembered the smile on Sensei's face as he said it, and how his wife had refused to listen anymore, saying, please don't say it again, it is so unlucky. Then the death had been simply a matter of speculation, but now it was something that might soon become a reality. I could not very well imitate Sensei's wife, for I had something to say to divert my father's mind from the thought of death. Please don't talk like that. Remember, you are coming to Tokyo to enjoy yourself when you are better. Good morning. It smells like chocobo. That I haven't seen you for a long time in my Twitch. Good morning. Sorry for stopping the reading. It's just that I haven't seen chocobo for a long time. Okay, let's take a small break. Take a sip of tea and I'll continue in a bit. And I'm back. Oh, read a quote on love. Alright, let's take a short break and then read a quote on love. Keiko? Alright, we have a book here called Love. Selected quotation by Paulo Coelho. Alright, and you can choose from page 10 to page 128. $57. For Keiko, a quote on love. Profound desire, true desire, is the desire to be close to someone. From that point onwards, things change. The man and the woman come into play. But what happens before? The attraction that brought them together is impossible to explain. It is untouched desire in its pure state. There is a quote on love. What do you think? Pretty good, huh? Yeah, I agree with that quote. Definitely. Sometimes you don't really know why you are attracted to someone, but you just do. And then when you go through the pain of breaking up, you try to remember why did you like this person in the first place, and you can't seem to remember why exactly. Pretty profound and also pretty a tinge of sadness in that quote. Yeah, do you think? Right, let us continue. Yeah, you know what I mean. Alright, let us do continue with our story of Kokoro. Please don't talk like that. Remember, you're coming to Tokyo to enjoy yourself when you are better, and mother is coming with you. You will really be amazed to see how much Tokyo has changed since your last visit. For example, the tram lines have become numerous and you know how they affect the appearance of the streets. There's been rearrangement of the boroughs too. Why? One can say that in Tokyo today, there's not a moment of quiet day or night. Perhaps, in my anxiety to please my father, I chatted more than I should. He seemed to enjoy listening to me, however. Owing to his illness, the number of visitors to our house increased. Our relations living nearby came to see him frequently, perhaps at the rate of one every 2 days. Even those relations who live far away and who had become estranged from us were among the visitors. Why, say one of them, after he had seen my father, he is so much better than I thought. I am sure he will be all right. He has no troubles talking, and his face isn't any thinner. Besides him, there were others who felt the same way about my father's condition. Our household, which on my return has struck me as being almost too quiet, now become disturbingly busy, and my father, the only immobile figure in the growing commotion, becomes steadily worse. After consulting my mother and my uncle, I decided to send the telegram. Oh, hey, wine! Don't worry about it. You had fun last night, and that is all that matters. You know? Don't worry about it. Yeah, of course. Eventful, good or bad? That's the question. Eventful. Eventful can mean anything. It can be really bad or really good. So I don't want to celebrate first. Tell me about it. It's fine. We can take a pause from the story and listen to wine for a bit. I mean, this is a very pretty chill stream, just us talking to each other. Me reading sometimes. Tell me all about your eventful evening last night. Wine. And no, don't say sorry to me. There's nothing to be sorry about at all. I see. Did you drink a lot of wine? You know, something like that happened to me before and I was on stream. Oh yeah, Keiko. And I was on stream with friends, so it was like a Discord stream, not stream. Okay, then we shall continue our story. I'm sorry you missed the beginning of it, but as usual, there are votes afterwards. Oh man, Keiko, revealing a lot of stuff about yourself. Okay, a countdown of 10. Oh, Savory is here. Hey, Savory. Sneaky, sneaky Savory. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. A reply came from my brother saying that he would leave home at once. Then there was a telegram from my brother in law saying that he would be coming. My sister had had a miscarriage from her previous pregnancy, and he had sworn that the next time he would do everything possible to help prevent another such occurrence. We thought it probable, therefore, that he would come alone. Despite the unsettling circumstances, however, I was able to enjoy moments of privacy. Sometimes I had even time enough to read 10 pages of a book without interruptions. The trunk, once so carefully packed, was now lying open on the floor. Every so often I would go to it and pull out a book that I happened to want. Looking back on the daily schedule for the summer that I had set myself before leaving Tokyo, I decided that I had been able to complete about only 1/3 of the work that I should have done by then. The unpleasant feeling that I had not worked hard enough was one that I had often experienced before, though only very rarely that I had ever accomplished so little as I had that summer. I was weighed down by the depressing thought that such perhaps was the normal state of things in every man's life. Sitting thus unhappily, I thought again about my father's illness. I wondered how things would be after he was dead. And once more, side by side with the image of my father, there appeared in my thoughts the image of Sensei. With my mind's eye, I gazed upon these two figures, so different from each other in position, in education, and in character. My mother looked around in the door of my room and found me sitting amongst my scattered books with my arms folded. I had not long before left my father's bedside. "Why don't you take a nap?" she said. "You must be tired." She could not see that I was not suffering from a physical fatigue, but I was not a child as to expect my mother to guess my mood. I thanked her simply. My mother stood in the doorway. "How is father?" I asked. "He is sleeping quite soundly at the moment," she said. Suddenly, she walked into the room and sat down by me. "Haven't you heard from Sensei yet?" she asked. Before sending my letter to Sensei, I had assured her that he would definitely write back, and she had believed me. But even then, I did not think that Sensei would write the kind of reply that my father and mother was expecting. In effect, I had knowingly lied to them. "Why don't you write to him again?" she said. I was not sort I was not the sort to begrudge my mother the little comfort of writing of useless letters, no matter how many might give her. It was nevertheless painful for me to write to Sensei about such a matter. I feared Sensei's contempt far more than my father's anger or my mother's displeasure. I was indeed inclined to suspect that Sensei's silence was due to his contempt for my request. "It's easy enough to write letters," I said. "But really, one cannot arrange such things by mail. I must go to Tokyo and look around for myself. But with your father's way, the way he is, there's no knowing when you'll be able to go to Tokyo. I do not intend to go to Tokyo. I intend to stay here until we know what will become of him. I should say so. Who would ever think of going to Tokyo at a time like this, when he is so critically ill? At first, I felt sorry for my mother who understood so little. And then I began to wonder why it was that she had chosen such a time to reopen the question of my future. I had myself be able to forget my father's illness for a moment or two and read and think in the privacy of my room. But did my mother, I wonder, have the same capacity to detach her thoughts from the invalid for a brief while and worry about other things? My mother began to speak again. As a matter of fact, I cannot help thinking how much of a comfort it would be to your father if you could find a job. Of course, it may be too late now, but as you can see, he can still talk without any trouble, and his mind is perfectly clear. Would you be a good son and try to make him happy before he gets any worse? But the pity of it was that I could not be the good son that my mother wished me to be. I did not write so much as a line to Sensei. My father was reading the newspaper in bed when my elder brother arrived. It had always been my father's custom to never let anything prevent him from at least glancing through the newspaper. But from boredom resulting from his confinement to bed had made him more attached to it than ever. Thank you for the follow, Wolfie. Thank you so much. Thank you. And also, Vay Serafal, I think you made a new account just to follow me. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, one moment, please. Sorry. Oh, everyone's here and so cute. Besides him, there were others who felt the same way about my father's condition. Wait, where did I stop? Ah, okay, here. Sorry. But boredom resulting from his confinement to bed had made him more attached to it than ever. Oh, Dr. Gondrieve, thank you for the follow. Thank you so much. I think there's something off with my alert, but I can see that you follow. Thank you so much for the follow. I really appreciate it. And by the way, guys, 69 followers. Oh, wait, 70 now? Damn! Thank you so much for the follow, you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Noise. Yes, noise indeed. Thank you so much, everyone. I hit 70. Oh my god, avocado and Vegemite toast sounds absolutely delicious. Jeez. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Severy. Oh man, thank you so much for everyone's support. I gotta fix my Streamlabs later because I can see the chat of the follow, but I didn't like the notification didn't work very well, so I gotta like fix it later. So I gotta DN, please remind me as well. Melangiers, thank you so much for the follow. Oh my god, 71 followers. Thank you so much, everyone. Ah! Oh my god, thank you for the sub. Oh my god, Vay. You don't have to. It's you really don't have to. Like seriously, a follow will be helpful enough. That's all I need. A follow and watch my channel to listen to my channel. That's all I need. Thank you so much. Deanne, remind me to fix my Streamlabs afterwards, alright? Oh my god! Another sub. Oh, thank you so much. Smells like Chocobo or Cardia in game. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh my god. Suddenly everything's so active. Oh. Oh, yun nasawa mo. Alright. Starting reading again in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Neither my mother nor I had objected too strongly, thinking it best to leave him with his favorite pastime. I am glad to see you looking so well, said my brother to my father. I came here thinking that you must be really ill, but you look very well indeed. My brother seemed to me too cheerful, and his bright tone a little out of place. But later, when he had left my father and was alone with me, he seemed more depressed. He shouldn't be reading the paper like that, should he? He said. No, I don't think he should either, but what can I do? He insists on being allowed to see it. My brother listened to my excuses in silence. Then he said, I wonder if he understands what he is reading. He seems to have decided that my father's mind had been considerably dulled by his illness. Certainly, I said, he understands. Oh, thank you for the gifted sub. Oh my god, thank you Vera Serafal for the gifted sub to Keiko. Yes. No, Keiko, you are not a banana, you are a banana. Thank you so much, you guys. Oh no! To Savory as well, thank you so much! Oh my god, you guys are crazy. Thank you for the support. Oh my god. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I'm so happy. Ah. Thank you. Certainly, I said, he understands perfectly well. Why, only a short time ago, I talked to him about all sorts of things for about 20 minutes. And it would be obvious then that he was in full possession of his faculties. At this rate, it's possible that he will be with us for quite a while yet. My brother-in-law, who had arrived at the same time as my brother, was more optimistic than any of us. My father asked him many questions about my sister, and then said, in her condition it is wise to avoid such discomforts as a train journey. I would have been very worried rather than pleased had he gone to the trouble of coming to see me. He then added, after all, I can always visit her when I am better. and have a good look at the baby. My father was the first to see the great news of General Nogi. Sorry, not great news at all. My father was the first to see the news of General Nogi's death in the newspaper. What a terrible thing, he said. What a terrible thing. We, who had yet to read the news, were startled by the exclamations. I really did think he had finally gone mad, said my brother-in-law. I must say I was surprised too, agreed my brother-in-law. About the time, the papers were so full of unusual news that we were in the country, waited impatiently for their arrival. I would read the news by my father's bedside, taking care not to disturb him, or, if I could not do this, I would quietly retire to my own room and there read the paper from the beginning to end. For a long time, the image of General Nogi in his uniform and that of his wife dressed like a court lady stayed with me. The tragic news touched us like bitter wind which awakened the trees and the grass sleeping in the remotest corners of the countryside. The incident was still fresh in our minds when, to my surprise, a telegram arrived from Sensei. In a place where dogs bark at the sight of a Western-style suit, the arrival of a telegram was a great event. My mother, to whom the telegram had been given, seemed to think it was necessary to call me to the deserted part of the house before handing it to me. Needless to say, she looked quite startled. "What is it?" she said, standing by while I opened it. It was a simple message, saying that he would like to see me if possible and would I come up. I cocked my head in puzzlement. My mother offered an explanation. "I am sure that he wants to see you about a job," she said. I thought perhaps my mother was right. On the other hand, I could not quite believe that Sensei wanted to see me for that reason. At any rate, I, who had sent for my brother and brother-in-law, could hardly abandon my sick father to go to Tokyo. My mother and I decided that I should send Sensei a telegram saying that I could not come. I explained, as briefly as possible, that my father's condition was becoming more and more critical. I felt, however, that I owed him a full explanation. That same day I wrote him a letter giving him the full details. My mother, who was firmly convinced that the sensei had some post in mind for me, said in a tone filled with regret, "What a pity that this should happen such a time." The letter I wrote was quite a long one. Both my mother and I thought that this time Sensei would write in reply. Then 2 days later, after I posted my letter, a telegram arrived for me that I need not come and no more. I showed it to my mother. "I think that he will soon be writing to you about it," she said. It never occurred to her that Sensei might have had something other than my future livelihood in mind when he sent me his first telegram. And though I thought that my mother might possibly be right, I could not but feel that it was not like Sensei to go through the trouble of finding me a job. "Of course," I said, pointing to the second telegram. "Sensei cannot have received my letter yet, so he sent this without having read the letter." My mother listened in all seriousness as I stated this obvious fact. "Yes, that is so," she said, after some careful thought. Needless to say that the fact that Sensei had not yet received my letter when he sent the second telegram was no indication as to why he had sent the telegrams at all. We spoke no more about Sensei and his telegrams that day, since we were expecting our regular doctors to come with the chief physician of the town hospital. I remember the two doctors, after examining my father, decided that he should be given an enema. For the first few days after the doctor had ordered him to stay in bed, my father had found it particularly galling not to be able to go to the bathroom. But gradually... Thank you so much, Keiko, for the sip. I'm gonna sip my tea now. Thank you. Once again, thank you for the follow and thank you for the subscriptions, guys. Thank you for the support.
Stretch.
Oh, stretch time. Okay, that's a good stretch. I shall reposition myself properly as well. Move my shoulders a little bit. Okay. Yeah, it sounded nice. Wait, what? I was muted? Oh my god, I'm an idiot. Ah, why? Dumb dumb. Dumb dumb got muted. I think I muted when I was trying to drink water and then after that I forgot to put it back. Okay, I think I think I stop around here. No, I'm not angry. I'm just raging. Okay. Thank you for telling me, by the way. I'm an idiot. Okay. No, it's because I used to have two screens, and one of the screen have my Streamlabs on, and I can see all of your chat and emotes and everything. But and also I can see whether I'm muted or not. But my second screen doesn't work because I don't have the whatchamacallit, uh, the VGA converter. I'm gonna get it tomorrow, so don't worry. I'm gonna get my second screen back. But yeah, today's reading is gonna be a bit like scattered. Okay, I'm gonna continue. I think I stop around here. But gradually, he seemed to lose his habitual sense of propriety. As his condition grew worse, he became more uninhibited. At times, it seemed that he has lost all sense of shame in the matter of bodily functions. His appetite slowly decreased. Even when he desired food, he found that he could only swallow a small amount. His strength went too, and he could no longer hold the newspaper that he loved so much. His spectacles, which still lay beside his bed, now remained always in their black case. When a childhood friend of his, whom we all called Sakusan, and who lived about 3 miles away from us, came to see him, he turned his lackluster eyes towards his friend and said, "Oh, it is you, Sakusan. It was good of you to come, Sakusan. I envy your good health. I am finished." "Come now, you must not say such things. You may be suffering from a slight illness, it is true. But what have you really to complain about? You have 2 sons with university degrees, haven't you? Look at me. My wife is dead and I have no children. I'm leading a meaningless existence. I may be healthy, but what have I to look forward to?" It was 2 or 3 days after Sakusan's visit that my father was given the enema. He was very pleased, saying that thanks to the doctors he felt comfortable once more. He became more cheerful, as though he had regained confidence in his power to recover. When my mother had deceived into thinking that he was indeed getting better, or whether she was merely trying to encourage him, I do not know. But at any rate, she told him about the telegrams from Sensei and talked as though a post had been found for me in Tokyo as he had hoped. I was sitting beside my mother then, and though I felt uneasy that I could not very well interrupt her, so I listened to her in silence. My father looked pleased. "That is very good," said my brother-in-law. "But don't you know yet what sort of job it is?" asked my brother. It was too late to tell the truth. I lacked the courage. I made a vague remark, so vague that I myself did not know what its meaning, and abruptly left the room. My father's illness advanced to the point where death was but another step away, and there it seemed to linger a while. Every night we went to bed thinking, will death wait another day, or is it to be tonight? He was not in great pain, thus we were spared the strain of having to watch him suffer. From this point of view, nursing him was a relatively easy task. True, each one of us take turns stay up at night to keep watch over him, but the rest of us was free to go to bed at a reasonable hour. One night, it so happened that I found difficulty in going to sleep. As I lay in bed, I thought that I heard a faint sound of my father groaning. To make sure that there was nothing amiss, I got up and went to his bedroom. It was my mother's turn to stay up that night. I found her asleep on the floor by his side, with her head resting on a bent arm. My father was absolutely still, as though someone had gently lowered him into the whirl of deep sleep. Softly, I went back to my bed. My brother and I slept under the same mosquito net, but my brother-in-law, perhaps because he was regarded as a guest, slept alone in a separate room. "It's rather hard on poor Seki-san," said my brother. "He has been kept away from home for days now." Seki is the surname of our brother-in-law. "But he isn't a very busy man," I said. "That's probably why he has been good enough to remain here. Surely, it must be far more convenient for you than it is for him. You can't have expected to stay for so long." "True, but there's nothing one can do about it. At a time like this, one cannot start worrying about one's own affairs." Lying in bed, we would talk thus before going to sleep. We both thought that there was no hope for our father, and sometimes the thought would enter our minds that since he was doomed, it would be better if the end come quickly. In a matter of speaking, The two sons were waiting for their parent to die. But we, as sons, could not in all decency openly express our thoughts, though each of us knew fully well that the other was what the other was thinking. It would seem that father intends to get better, said my brother to me. My brother's opinion was not entirely unfounded. Whenever a neighbor came to our house, my father would invariably insist on seeing them, and then he would be sure to express his regret to the visitor that he had been unable to hold graduation party in my honor as planned. Sometimes he would add that when he gets better, the visitor would certainly receive another invitation from him. It's just as well that the party was cancelled, said brother, reminding of me of his own unfortunate experience. You are a very lucky fellow. As for me, I had terrible time of it. I smiled sourly to remind as I remembered how disorderly and drunken the evening had been. I remembered the bitterness how my father had gone around forcing food and drinks on his guests. There was never been much brotherly love between us. We had fought a great deal when we were children, and I, being the younger, had invariably left the fight in tears. Again, the fact that we had studied different subjects in university was an indication of the difference in our characters. When I was in the university, and especially after meeting Sensei, I used to regard my brother from afar and pronounce him a kind of an animal. He was then living far away from me, and we had not seen each other for some years. We had become alienated from both distance and time. Nevertheless, when we met again for after so long a separation, we found ourselves being drawn together by a gentle brotherly feeling which seemed to come naturally from I know not where. No doubt the circumstances of our reunion had much to do about it. We had, so to speak, clasped each other by the hand over the dying body of one who was father to both of us. What are your plans for the future? Asked my brother. I answered him with a question of my own. I wonder what has been decided about the family property. I have no idea. Father has so far said nothing about it. In terms of cash, I don't suppose our property is worth very much. As for my mother, she waited anxiously for the arrival of Sensei's reply. Haven't you heard from him yet? She would say reproachfully. Who is this Sensei that I keep hearing about? Asked my brother. Why, I told you about him only the other day, I said. I was annoyed at him for so quickly forgetting what he had been told in answer to his own questions. You did tell me it's true, but what he meant to say, of course, was that Sensei was still a mystery to him. It should have mattered very little to me whether he understood Sensei or not. I was nevertheless angry or began to think that my brother, after all, had not changed very much. To his way of thinking, this man that I so admiringly referred as a sensei must necessarily be a man of some importance and reputation. He was inclined to imagine that sensei was at the very least a university lecturer. In this, he was no different from my father. He found it impossible to believe that, and so did my father, that a man who was not known and did nothing could amount to very much. But while my father was so quick to assume that only those with no ability at all would live in idleness, my brother seemed to think that men who refused to make use of their talents were worthless characters. That's the trouble with egoists, he said. They are brazen enough to think they have the right to live idly. It's a crime not to make the best use of whatever ability one has. I was tempted to ask my brother if he knew what he was talking about when he used the word egoist. But one mustn't grumble, he went on to say. Fortunately, it seems that he has found a job for you. Father is very pleased about that. Without definite word from Sensei, I could hardly share my brother's optimism regarding my future, but I had not the courage to say what I really thought. My mother had indeed been very rash when he announced that Sensei was willing to help me, but it was now too late for me to say so. I was as eager as my mother was to hear from Sensei, and I prayed that the letter, when it came, would live up to my family's expectations. And I thought of my father, who was so close to dying, of my mother, who was so desperately wanted to give him as much comfort as she could, of my brother, who seemed to think that not to work for one's living was hardly human, and of my brother-in-law, my uncle, my aunt. And I asked myself, what will they all think of me if Sensei has done nothing? What of what was of itself unimportant to me began to worry me terribly. When my father vomited some strange yellow matter, I remembered Sensei's and his wife's warning. He has been laying in his bed for so long, no wonder his stomach is upset, said my mother. I could not help the tears in my eyes as I looked at her. She understood so little. My brother and I met in the morning room. Did you hear? He said. He was asking whether I have heard what the doctor said to him before leaving. There was no need for my brother to say more, for I knew. Do you think you can settle down here and take over the house? He said. I said nothing. My brother continued. My mother can hardly manage things by herself, can she? The prospect of my slowly crumbling away with the odor of earth clinging to me bothered him very little. If all of you want, if all you want to do is to read books, then you can do that well enough here. Besides, you won't have to do any work. I should think the life would suit you very well. It would be proper if you, being the elder brother, come home, I said. How could I do a thing like that? He said crossly. My ambitious brother, I knew, was quite convinced that his promising career had just begun. Well, if you don't want to, I suppose we can always ask our uncle to manage our affairs for us. But even so, someone will have to look after mother. She will have to live with either you or me. That is the problem, I said. Will she ever agree to leave this house? And so, while their father was still alive, the two brothers talked of what they would do after his death. My father began to talk deliriously. Will General Nogi ever forgive me? He would say. How can I ever face him without shame? Yes, General, I will be with you very soon. When he said such things, my mother would become a little frightened and would ask us to gather around the bed. My father, too, when he came out of his delirium, seemed to want everybody by his side so not to feel lonely. He would want my mother most of all. He would look around the room, and if she was not there, she would be sure to ask, Where is Omitsu? Even when he did not say so, his eyes would ask the question. Often, I had to get up to find her. She would then leave her work and enter the sick room. Is there anything you wish? There were times when he would say nothing and simply look at her, and there were also times when he would say something quite unexpectedly gentle, such as, I have given you a lot of trouble, haven't I, Omitsu? And my mother's eyes would suddenly fill with tears. Afterwards, she would remember how different he used to be in the olden days and say, Of course, he sounds rather helpless now, but he used to be quite frightening, I can tell you. Among the tales she was fond of telling was the one about the time He had beaten her with a broomstick. We had often heard the tale before, but now we listened more carefully, as though the tale was a keepsake to be treasured. Even when death was casting its dark grey shadow over my father's eye, he said nothing about a will. "Don't you think we should speak to him about it before it's too late?" said my brother. "Well, I don't know," I said. I was not sure that to force my father to consider such a matter at this stage would be right. Finally, we went to our uncle for advice. He was also hesitant. Of course, if he did not anything on his mind, it would be a pity to let him die without telling us about it. On the other hand, perhaps it would be wrong of us to bring up the subject. Before we could reach a decision, my father fell into a coma. My mother, in her usual way, failed to see what had really happened. She was indeed very pleased, thinking that my father was sleeping peacefully. "Thank goodness he is still able to sleep like that," she said. "We can now relax." My father would open his eyes from time to time and would suddenly ask what had happened to so and so, referring always to someone who had been by his bedside in his last lucid period. It seemed that my father's understanding that a white thread running through black material was continuous through broken at intervals by patches of total darkness. It was not surprising that my mother would mistake his coma for a natural sleep. My father began to lose his power of speech. Often his sentences would trail off into incoherent mumbling, and we would fail completely to understand what he was trying to say. However, he would start each sentence in a voice stronger than one would have believed possible in one so ill. Also, he could no longer hear very well, and we were obliged to speak louder into his ears. "Would you like me to cool your head?" "Yes." With the help of the nurse, I renewed the water in the rubber pillow and placed a bag of newly crushed ice on his forehead. I placed it gently so that the sharp points of the ice would not hurt him. At that moment, my brother came into the room from the corridor, and without saying a word, handed me a letter. Much intrigued, I took the letter with my free hand. A moment for hydration. I placed it gently so that the sharp points of the ice would not hurt him. At that moment, my brother came into the room from the corridor, and without saying a word, handed me a letter. Much intrigued, I took the letter with my free hands. It was very heavy and too bulky to fit into an ordinary envelope. It was wrapped in a sheet of strong writing paper, which has been carefully folded and sealed. I noticed at once that it was a registered letter. When I turned it over, I saw Sensei's name written in a restrained hand. I was too busy to open the letter just then, and so I put it into my pocket. That day, my father's condition seemed to be very much worse. I left his bedside to go to the bathroom, and on my way there I met my brother in the corridor. "Where are you going?" he said, sounding rather like a sentry on duty. "He looks very bad, you know. You must try to stay with him as much as possible." My brother was right. Leaving the letter unopened in my pocket, I went back to the sick room. My father opened his eyes and asked for my mother for the names of all those seated around him. At the mention of each name, my father nodded, and he seemed not to hear. My mother repeated loudly, saying, "Did you hear?" My father said, "You have all been very kind." Thank you very much. Then again he fell into a coma. In silence, the people sitting around the dying man watched him for a while. Then one of the group got up and went into the adjoining room. Shortly after, another got up and left. The third to go was myself. I went back to my room with the intention of opening the letter there. No doubt I could quite easily have done so while sitting with my father, but the letter, judging by its weight, was obviously very long, and I could not have read it through the sick room without interruption. I had been waiting for such an opportunity as this to read it undisturbed in my own room. Almost violently, I tore open the half paper that contained the letter. The letter had the appearance of a manuscript with the characters neatly written between vertically ruled lines. I smoothed out the sheets, which had been folded over twice for easier handling in the post. I could not but wonder what was it that Sensei had written at such a great length? I was, however, too much on the edge to read the whole letter properly. My mind kept wandering back into the sick room. I had the feeling that something would happen to my father before I could finish reading the letter. At least, I was sure that I would soon be called away by my brother, or my mother, or my uncle. It was in this unsettled state. I read the first page. You once asked me to tell you of my past. I did not have the courage then to do so. But now, I believe I am free of the bonds that prevented me from telling you the truth about myself. The freedom that I have now, however, is no more than an earthly, physical kind of freedom, which will not last forever. Unless I take advantage of it while I can, I shall never again have the opportunity of passing on to you what I have learned from my own experience, and my promise to you will have been broken. Circumstances having prevented me from telling you my story in person, I have decided to write it out for you. I read thus far and realized why it was that letter was so long, that Sensei would not bother to write me about my future career. I had more or less known from the very beginning. What really worried me was that Sensei, who hated to write at all, had taken the trouble to write such a long epistle. Why had he not waited, I asked myself, until I was once more in Tokyo. I said to myself repeatedly, he's free now, but he will never be free again. And I tried desperately to understand what the words meant. And then, all of a sudden, I became uneasy. I tried to read on further, but before I could do so, I heard my brother's voice calling me from the sick room. Frightened, I stood up and hurried along the corridor where the others were gathered. I was prepared to learn that the end had come for my father. During my absence from the room, the doctor had arrived. In an attempt to make my father more comfortable, he was about to give him an enema. The nurse, tired from previous night's vigil, had gone to the next room to sleep. My brother, who was not used to helping on such occasions, seemed at loss. When he saw me enter, he said, "Here, give us a hand," and promptly sat down. I took his place and helped the doctor. My father's condition seemed to improve a little. The doctor remained for another half hour or so. Then, satisfied as to the results of the enema, he stood up to go. He was careful to tell us before leaving that if anything did happen, we should not hesitate to call him. Once more, I left the room with its atmosphere of approaching death and returned to my own. I tried I tried again to read the letter, but I was too nervous. No sooner had I sat down at my desk than I was overcome by fear lest I should hear my brother's loud voice summoning me to the sick room, perhaps for the last time. I turned the pages over mechanically, not taking in the meaning of the characters so neatly written along the ruled lines. I could not even grasp the gist of the letter. Finally, I reached the last page and was about to fold the letter again when I put it on my desk when suddenly a sentence near the end caught my eye. By the time this letter reaches you, I shall probably have left this world. I shall, in all likelihood, be dead. I was stunned. My heart, which had till then been so restless, seemed suddenly to freeze. Hurriedly, I began to turn pages over backwards, reading a sentence here and there, trying desperately to pin down the words which Sensei to dance before my eyes. All I wanted to know at that moment was that Sensei was still alive. Sensei's past, his dark past, that he had promised to tell me about, held no interest for me then, but I could not find what I was seeking, and I refolded the letter in exasperation. I returned to the doorway of my father's room to see how he was doing. The room was surprisingly quiet. There was only my mother sitting by the bedside, looking tired and forlorn. I beckoned to her and she came to me. I asked, "How is he?" She said, "He seems to be holding out." I went up to my father and putting my face close to his and said, "How do you feel? Has the enema made you feel more comfortable?" He nodded and then said quite distinctly, "Thank you." His mind seemed unexpectedly clear. Once more, I returned to my room. I looked at my watch and began to examine the railway time table. I then stood up, rearranged my dress, putting Sensei's letter into my pocket, went out through the back door. As though in a nightmare, I ran to the doctor's house. I wanted to ask the doctor whether my father would last 2 or 3 days. I wanted to beg him to keep my father alive for a few days more by injection or any other means in his power. The doctor was unfortunately out. I had not the time to wait for him. In any case, I was too agitated to stay still. I jumped into a rickshaw and urged the man to hurry to the station. At the station, I scribbled a hurried note to my mother and father and asked the rickshaw man to take it quickly to the house. I thought that it would be better to write even such a note than to leave without any word at all. Thus, in a desperate desire to act, I boarded the Tokyo-bound train. The noise of the engine filled my ears as I sat down in a third-class carriage. At last, I was able to read Sensei's letter from the beginning to end. A quick break. Hey, Keiko. Hey, King TC. Now I'm just taking a few breaths because shit's about to get heavy from now on. We have now reached the third volume of Kokoro by Natsume Sōseki. Oh yeah, sure. Are you trying to farm for something? Yeah, sure. I'll join you guys. I'll do whatever. Oh, wine, thank you. It's alright. We have now reached the third volume, the third chapter of sort of Kokoro by Natsume Sōseki. My guess is that we will not be able to finish it today because I have um, made it a point that I will not read more than 2 hours because it's very taxing for myself. So I think we should be able to finish Kokoro on Thursday, I think. Okay, let's start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The title of the chapter is Sensei and His Testament. I received 2 or 3 letters from you this summer. If I remember rightly, it was in your second letter that you asked me to help you find a suitable post. When I read it, I felt that the least I could do was to answer your letter. But I must confess that in the end, I did nothing. As you know, my circle of acquaintances is very small. Indeed, it would be more correct to say that I live alone in this world. How could I then have been any help to you? However, that is of little importance. You see, when your letter came, I was trying desperately to decide what I should do with myself. I was thinking, should I go on living as I do now, like a mummy left in the midst of living beings, or should I... In those days, every time I thought of the latter alternative, I was seized with a terrible fear. I was like a man who runs to the edge of a cliff and looking down sees that the abyss is bottomless. I was a coward. And like most cowards, I suffered because I could not decide. Unfortunately, it would not be an exaggeration to say that at the time I was hardly aware of your existence. To go one further, such a matter as your future livelihood was to me almost totally without significance. I did not care what you did. It was not, to my way of thinking, worth all the fuss. I put your letter in the letter rack and continued to worry about my own problem. One brief and contemptuous glance in your direction, that is about all I thought you deserved. Why should a fellow, I ask myself, as comfortably placed as you are, start whining up for a job so soon after graduating? It is because I feel that I owe you some sort of explanation for my conduct, that I tell you all this, that I'm not being purposely rude in order to anger you. I believe that you will understand when you have read my letter. At any rate, I should have at least acknowledged your letter. Please forgive me for my negligence. Sometime later, I sent you a telegram. To tell you the truth, I simply wanted to see you again. Also, I want to tell you the story of my past, as you had once asked me to. When your telegram came saying that you could not come to Tokyo, I was deeply disappointed. I remember I sat still for a while staring at it. You too must have felt that a telegram was not enough, for you kindly wrote me a letter soon afterwards. The letter made it quite clear why you could not come to Tokyo. I had no reason to resent your not complying with my request. How could you have left home with your own father so ill? It was I who was at fault. How could I should have remembered your father's condition. As a matter of fact, when I sent you the telegram, I had forgotten all about him. I, who had previously warned you of the seriousness of his illness, could not remember. You see, I am an inconsistent person. This inconsistency may not be so much natural part of my character as the effect that the remembrance of my own past has had on me. At any rate, I am well aware of my failing. You must forgive me. When I read your letter, your last letter to me, I realized I had done wrong. I thought I would write to you and say so. I went as far as to pick up my pen, but in the end I put it back in the desk without writing a single line. The truth is, the only thing I would have thought worth saying at the time are those things which I shall say here, and it was then too soon for me to write such a letter. That is why I sent you that simple telegram telling you that there was no need to come. No, I'm not tired. It's not about being tired. It's about the book getting really heavy. Natsume Sōseki has a very, 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 very consistent way to end his stories. And it's always very heavy. So I'm just preparing myself by breathing a bit just now. I'm not tired. Don't worry about me. I began to write this letter. I am not accustomed to writing, and it pained me much to find that many of the incidents and my own thoughts I could not describe as freely as I wished. Often, I was tempted to abandon the task and so break my promise to you. But every time I dropped my pen thinking I could not go on, I found that before a full hour had passed, I was writing once more. You may take this as a manifestation of my naturally strong sense of obligation. I will not contradict you if you do so. As you know, I have led a very secluded life and have had little contact with the outside world. As I look about me, I find that I really have no obligations, either through force of circumstances or through my own designing. I have lived in such a way as to free my life of obligation. But this is not because I have not it in me to feel such a sense of obligations towards others. Rather, it is because I feel it so sharply that I have led such a negative kind of life. I am not a strong person enough to bear the pains that it inflicts on one. You will understand then that if I had not kept my promise to you, I should have felt very uneasy. The desire to avoid such uneasiness was it itself enough to make me pick up my pen again. But that is not the only reason why I wanted to write this. You see, apart from my sense of obligation, there is the simple reason that I want to write about my past. Since my past was experienced only by me, I might be excused if I regarded it as my property and mine alone. And it is not natural that I should want to give this thing which is mine to someone before I die. At least, that is how I feel. On the other hand, I would rather see it destroyed with my life than offer it to someone who does not want it. In truth, if there had not been such a person as you, my past would never have become known, even indirectly to anyone, to you alone. Then among the millions of Japanese, I wish to tell my past, for you are sincere, and because once you said in all sincerity that you wish to learn from life itself. without hesitation. I was about to force you into the shadows of this dark world of ours, but you must not fear. Gaze steadily into the shadows and then take whatever will be of use to you in your own life. When I speak of darkness, I mean moral darkness, for I was born an ethical creature and I was brought up to be an ethical man. True, my ethics may be different from those of the young men of today, but they are at least my very own. I did not borrow them for the sake of convenience, as man might a dress suit. It is for that reason that I think you, who wish to grow, may learn something from my experience. You will remember how you used to try to argue with me about contemporary ideas. You will remember too what my attitude was, though I did not exactly disdain your opinions. I must admit I could not bring myself to respect them either. Your thoughts were without solid foundation, and you were too young to have had much experience. Sometimes I laughed. Sometimes you used to look at me discontentedly. In the end, you asked me to spread out my past like a picture scroll before your eyes. Then, for the first time, I respected you. I was moved by your decision, albeit discautious in expression, to grab something that was alive within my soul. You wish to cut open my heart and see the blood flow. I was stand still alive. I did not want to die. That is why I refused you and postponed the granting of your wish to another day. Now, I myself am about to cut open my own heart and drench my face with your bread and drench your face with my blood, and I shall be satisfied if, when my heart stops beating, a new life lodges itself in your breast. I was not yet 20 when I lost both my parents. I think that my wife once mentioned to you that they died of the same disease. Also, if I remember correctly, she told you, much to your surprise, they died almost exactly the same time. My father, to tell the truth, was killed by the dreadful disease typhoid, and my mother, who was nursing him, caught it from him. I was their only son. Our family was very well off, and so I was brought up in an atmosphere of generosity and ease. As I look back on my past, I cannot but feel that had my parents, or at least one of them, survived, I might have been allowed to keep my generous nature. I was left behind alone, helpless as a lost child. I was inexperienced and knew nothing of the ways of the world. My mother would not be my father when he died. Could not be with my father when he died. And when my mother was dying, she was not told that my father was already dead. I do not know whether she knew or whether she actually believed us when we told her that he was recovering. All I know is that she asked my uncle to take care of everything. I was there at the time. She nodded towards me and said to my uncle, "Please look after my child." It would seem that she wanted to say more, but she succeeded only in saying, "To Tokyo." My uncle quickly said, "All right, you mustn't worry." It may be that my mother's constitution did not succumb too easily to fever, but at any rate, my uncles later said to me praisingly, "She's a brave woman." I do not know whether those few words of my mother's were her last or not. She, of course, knew terrible nature of her own disease, that she had caught it from my father, but I am by no means certain that she truly believed that she would die from it. And no matter how clear those words she spoke in high fever might have been, they often left no trace in her memory when the fever subsided. That is why I. But never mind. What I'm trying to say is that even then, I was beginning to show signs of a deeply suspicious nature which could not accept anything without closely analyzing it. Irrelevant as the above account may be to the main part of my narrative, I feel that it will help you to understand one side of my character. Please read all such passages, then in this light. This nature of mine led me not only to suspect the motives of individual persons, but to doubt even the integrity of all mankind. And to what extent it increased my capacity for suffering, you will see for yourself. I have digressed enough. Considering my situation, I am quite calm. Even the sound of trams, which seems to be audible only when the rest of the world has gone to sleep, I can hear no more. The forlorn singing of the insects reaches me through the closed shutters, and one feels that their song is of the dews of coming autumn. My wife sleeps innocently in the next room. The pen in my hand makes a faint scratching sound as it traces one character after another down the pages. My heart is tranquil as I sit before my desk. If the strokes of my character seems ill arranged, you must not think this due to my mental stage. Attribute it rather to my inexperience with the pen. At any rate, I, who was left alone, had no choice but to rely on my uncle in accordance with my mother's wishes. My uncle, on his part, accepted full responsibility and looked after my affairs, as he arranged as I had hoped for me to go to Tokyo. I came to Tokyo and entered the college. College students in those days were considerably more violent and barbaric than they are now. One student I knew, for example, got into a fight with an apprentice one night and hurt him rather badly on the head with his wooden clogs. He had been drinking and did not see the other fellow taking his college cap from him in the midst of the violent fight. His name, of course, was carefully written on the label of the cap. The police were ready to report him to the college, but thanks to the intercessions of his friends, the matter was prevented from becoming public. You went You went to the college in the more gentle days, and so you must feel contempt for such rough doings. I also, when I look back on those days, feel that we were all pretty silly. There was, however, a certain kind of admirable simplicity in life of the student then which one does not find today. My monthly allowance, which my uncle sent, was considerably less than what your father used to send you. Of course, the cost of living has gone up since my student days, but I do not remember wanting any more money than I received. Besides, my financial situation was such that there was no reason for me to envy my classmates. When I think of it, it is likely that many of them envied me. In addition to my regular allowance, I used to receive allowances for books, which I already fond of buying books, and for incidental expenses. Sorry, for incidental expenses which I spent freely. Being innocent, I not only trusted my uncle completely and admired him and even considered myself indebted to him. He was a businessman. He was also at one time a member of the prefectural assembly. I seem to remember that through his membership in the assembly, he had connections with some political party. Thank you, they Seraphon, for the sip sip. I'm back. I seem to remember that through his membership in the assembly, he had connections with some political party. Though he, though he and my father were brothers, it was seen that their characters developed in quite different directions. My father was a simple, upright man whose main purpose in life was to keep intact the property left him by his ancestors. He took pleasure in tea ceremony and in the arrangement of flowers. He loved to read poetry. Paintings and antiques seems to interest him too. Our house was in the country, and I remember that a dealer from the town used to visit my father, bringing him paintings, incense burners, and so on. The town was about 6 miles away, and it was there that my uncle lived. My father was, I suppose, one might call a man of means, a country gentleman of taste. There was, therefore, quite a contrast between him and his active worldly brother. Oddly enough, they seemed quite fond of each other. My father would speak of my uncle in glowing terms, saying what a sound fellow he was, how superior his brother's qualities were to his own. One moment, please. I'm back. I hope I'm back. Okay, I'm back. The trouble with inheriting money from one's parents, he once said to my mother and to me, is that it dulls one's wits. It's a bad thing not to have to struggle for one's living. I believe that he said this for my benefit. At least he gave me a meaningful look at that time. That is why I remember his words so well. How could I doubt this uncle of mine, whom my father trusted and admired so much? It was natural that someone to be proud of. He became. Wait, how could I? It was natural that I should be proud of him. And when my father and mother died, he became more than someone to be proud of. He became a necessity. Sorry. When I went home the following summer, my uncle had already moved. Sorry. When I went home the following summer, my uncle had already moved into our house with his family and was now its new master. This had been arranged between us before I left for Tokyo. So long as I was not going to be in the house all the time, some arrangement was necessary. My uncle was at the time connected with many business enterprises in the town. I remember that we agreed that he should move into the house and manage the property during my absence. He said to me with a smile, "Of course, from the point of my view, from the point of view of my own business, it would be much convenient to live in my own house than to live 6 miles from the town." My house had a long history and was not unknown in the district. In the country, as you're probably well aware, it is a very serious thing to tear down or sell a house with a long tradition when there is an heir. Such things do not worry me now, but I was young then, and I was torn between the desire to go to Tokyo and the fear of shirking the responsibility of my inheritance. Unwillingly, my uncle consented to move into my my house. He insisted, however, that he be allowed to keep his old residence in town so that he might stay there whenever it was necessary. Naturally, I had no objections. I was willing to agree to any arrangement which would enable me to go to Tokyo. As a child, Will, I loved my home, and when parted from it, there was a yearning for it in my heart. I was a traveler who, no matter where he goes, never doubts that he will someday return to his place of birth. I came to Tokyo of my own free will, and I had little doubt that I should return when the holiday comes. And so I studied and played in the great city, dreaming often of my home. I have no idea how my uncle divided his time between two residences during my absence. At any rate, when I arrived, he and his whole family were living in my house. I suppose that those of his children were still in school lived normally in the townhouse, but had been brought to our house in the country for the holidays. They were all pleased to see me. I was pleased too, for the house had become a more cheerful place, much more cheerful certainly than when my parents are alive. My uncle chased out his eldest son who had taken over my own room and put me in it. I objected, saying that since the house was so crowded, I did not mind staying in some other room. But my uncle would not listen. "This is your house after all," he said. There were unhappy moments when I thought of my mother and father, but on the whole, I had an enjoyable summer with my uncle's family. There was one thing, however, which cast a slight shadow on my memory of that summer. My uncle and my aunt had more than once tried to persuade me, who had just entered college, to marry. The first time they mentioned marriage to me, I was somewhat shocked, for the subject had been introduced suddenly. For the second time, I positively refused to consider it, and the third time, I was forced to ask them why they wanted to discuss such a thing. The reason they gave me was quite simple. I should, they said, get married as soon as possible and succeed my father. I myself had been under the happy impression that for so long as I came home for the holidays, all will be well. Of course, I was too well acquainted with the ways of the country not to see the reasonableness of my uncle's wish that I should get married and settle down properly as my father's heir. Moreover, I do not think that I really disliked the prospect. But I had only recently begun my studies at the college, and it was no more real to me than a distant scene observed from the wrong end of a telescope. Thank you for being here with me, you guys. I forgot all about the subject of marriage. None of the young men in my group seems to me to have that domesticated look. They all seemed to do as they like, and as far as I could tell, were all bachelors. It is possible that if one had examined their personal histories carefully, one might have discovered that despite their easygoing ways, sorry, some of them had already been forced into marriage. But I was too young to even suspect such a thing. Besides, even if there had been such men in our midst, it is doubtful that they would have wanted to talk about marriage, a subject far removed from the thoughts of young students. To think of it, I was happy in this position, but I was not worried and managed to spend another year happily at the college. At the end of the academic year, I packed my bag once more and returned to my parents' resting place. In my house, where once my father and mother had lived, I saw the cheerful faces of my uncle and his family. Again, I was able to breathe the air of my native place, which was as dear to me then as it ever was before. It was good to be back after a year of student life. But I was not allowed to enjoy for a long familiar surrounding which has become almost a part of me. Once more, my uncle brought up the subject of marriage. His reasons for wanting to see me get married was the same as those he gave me the previous year, but this time he had someone in mind for me, which made the matter all the more embarrassing. The person that he suggested as a suitable bride was his own daughter, my cousin. It will be convenient arrangement for both parties, he said. Your father, before he died, seemed to be of the same opinion. I could myself see the convenience of such union, and I could quite easily believe that my father had been in agreement with my uncle. But the idea of marrying my cousin had never crossed my mind before, and had my uncle not pointed out the advantages of the marriage, they would certainly have never occurred to me. I was therefore surprised, yet I had to admit to myself that the reasonableness of my uncle's wishes. Perhaps I am a thoughtless sort of person. At any rate, I believe that the main source of my reluctance to marry my cousin lay in the complete indifference to her. As a child, I had frequently gone to play at my uncle's home in town. I remember that I often spent the night there. My cousin and I, therefore, childhood friends. You know, of course, that a brother does not fall in love with his sister. I may be simply repeating what has already been known, but I do believe that for love to grow, there must be first the impact of novelty. Between two people who have always known each other, the necessary stimulus can never be felt, like the first whiff of burning incense or like the taste of one's first cup of sake. There is love in the moment when all its power is felt. There may be fondness, but not love between two people who have come to know each other well without ever having grasped that moment. No matter how hard I tried, I could not bring myself to want my cousin for a wife. My uncle said that if I should insist, he would be willing to postpone my wedding until I graduated. But he added, as the saying goes, don't put off the good things. I should like, if possible, to announce the engagement now. As far as I was concerned, a fiancée was no more desirable than a wife, so I refused. My uncle pulled a sour face. My cousin cried, not because she was saddened by the prospect of a life without me, but because her woman's pride had been hurt by my refusal to marry her. I know very well that she was no more in love with me than I was with her. I returned once more to Tokyo. The following summer, I went home for the third time. I had, as usual, awaited the end of the examinations impatiently and then hurried away from Tokyo as quickly as I could. Home was indeed very dear to me. You know, of course, that the very air of one's native place seems different than from that of anywhere else. The smell of earth even seems to have a special quality of its own. Besides, I found there to comfort me the tender memory of my father and mother. I look forward to the month of July and August, when I could live like a snake hibernating in its hole, secure and comfortable in its surrounding. I was so simple to think that the question of marriage is between my cousin and myself had been settled, and that there was no more need for me to worry about it. I believed that in life, so long as one rejected openly that what one did not want, one would be left alone. And so that the fact that I had not yielded my uncle's persuasion worried me very little. After having spent a year without giving it much thought, I went home in my usual cheerful mood. My uncle's attitude towards me, however, had changed. He did not receive me with open arms as he had one and as he had done before. But being a rather easygoing sort of fellow, I did not notice this until I had been home 4 or 5 days. Some incident or other brought it to my notice, and when I looked about me, I saw that not only had my uncle become strange, but my aunt and cousin also. Even my uncle's eldest son, who had not long before written to me for advice saying that he was intending to go to a commercial college in Tokyo after his graduation from high school, seems to behave strangely. It was my nature to begin wondering, why is it that my feelings have changed? I asked myself. But quickly the question became, why is it their feelings have changed? And suddenly I began to think that my dead father and mother had lifted the veil from my eyes so that I could see the world clearly for what it really was. You see, somewhere in my heart, I believed that my parents, though they had departed from this world, still loved me as they had done when they are alive. I do not think that even at that time the rational part of me was undeveloped, but there was deeply rooted in my system a core of superstition bequeathed to me by my ancestors. I think that it is still there. I went alone to the hill where my parents are buried. I knelt down before their grave. I knelt partly in sorrow and partly in gratitude, and as though my future happiness were held in the hands of these two buried under the cold tombs, I prayed to them to watch over my destiny. You may laugh, and I will not blame you if you do, but I was that sort of person. All of a sudden, my world had changed. I had this experience before. It was, I think, in my 16th or 17th year that with a shock I discovered that there was beauty in this world. I rubbed my eyes many times and not believing what they saw. And then my heart cried out, "How beautiful!" It is at this age of 16 or 17 that both boys and girls become, to use a popular expression, of love conscious. I was no different from the others. For the first time in my life, I was able to see women as the personification of beauty in this world. My eyes, which had been blind to the existence of the opposite sex, were suddenly open, and before them, a whole new universe unraveled itself. My awareness, my sudden awareness of my uncle's attitude, I suppose, a similar experience. It rushed at me without warning. My uncle and his family appeared before my eyes as totally different beings. I was shocked, and I began to feel that unless I did something, I might be lost. Ladies and gentlemen, that is where we are stopping today. Thank you very much for being here with me, you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm forever grateful as usual. We still have a lot to go through, Kokoro, but I hope you guys are enjoying it. I'm really liking where the direction of the story is going right now. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. Okay, let me put everything aside. Okay, and see what's going on here. Keyboard. All right. はい、お疲れ様でした。Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, the system. Oh, hey, the system. It's okay. So many of you, so many of you, so many of you. Thank you so much, everyone. Lulu Jetamo, thank you for being here. Mia Melange, Crazy and Starfield, Savri, and the system. Thank you so much, everyone. And of course, thank you, Deanne, especially Deanne, for helping me as always as my super manager. And thank you for the follows. Thank you for the. Hang on, let me see. Thank you for the follows. Thank you for the subs. You guys are amazing. I love all of you. I am like so delighted right now. Oh my god, look at my glass wine. Oh, thank you Jetamo for following. Thank you so much. Oh my god, 72. I'm gonna take a sip from this one. I hope you guys enjoyed my stream today. Um. Oh, ooh, somebody wants. Okay, okay, okay. I see it. I see it. Somebody wants a tarot card. Oh, all right. I got it prepared. Tarot, let's go. Oh my god, you guys. Seriously. Yes. It is time for if you guys want to redeem anything, any poem reading, tarot reading, any love quotes reading, this is the time to go. Hell yeah. Okay. Give me your instructions. Do you want this to be a question or a card of the day? How many times you want me to shuffle? You can pick from the top or through spread. I'm going to. I usually put this under a cool down. Give me one moment. I will not. I will try to make it not. One moment, please. One moment, please. But yeah, give me your instructions and then I will follow. Viewer rewards. Because I intended that maybe people will be like requesting for it, but same. You guys can redeem as many as you want right now. If you can afford it, of course. Let me change it. Alright. Okay. Refresh your stream and then. One, two, hang on. Okay. Okay, card of the day. Okay. Deanne, help me keep track of all these requests. My manager. Okay. Okay, card of the day. How many times should I shuffle it? Eight. Wait. What? No! 私たちはなたととっても大好きしています。Aww, thank you. Vera, how many times should I shuffle it? And how many times should I shuffle it? And do I pick it from the top of the card or do I spread it out and choose one in between? Wifey said 8. Okay, we'll do 8. Card of the day for Vey Sarafal. Listen to the shuffle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. See? I knew you will win the house lottery. Okay, spread. And with my judgment, I'll pick your card of the day. Hidden down there. Okay. No, there are some people who ask me to like shuffle like 80 times, and I still do it. It's fine. Alright, you wanna see your card? Oh my god. Oh my god. You know what card you got? You got my favorite card in the entire tarot deck. I've never told anyone. Twisty knows. Twisty knows what is my favorite card of the entire deck. You have an amazing card. Seriously, Vey, you have an amazing card. This is like the best card. I mean, in my opinion, it's the best card for. It's the best card in the whole deck. I know there are like other people who likes the other cards, but this is my favorite card, and I had plans to get it tattooed on me because I love it that much. That's how much I love it. It is the Temperance. Go Google the Temperance card right now and just look at her. So Temperance card. Today, basically, you will have a very harmonious day, a very peaceful, like nothing bad will happen kind of day. Now, everything, not saying that everything will go your way, but no. Temperance, yeah. But yeah, today we will be doing Intemperance. I will, if you guys would like to have a super OP summoner, super OP scholar in your team, do send me an invite today after 4 p.m. GMT plus 8. Okay. Yeah, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Okay, so Temperance card is the 14th card in the Major Arcana. So the keywords for Temperance is moderation, harmony, acceptance, resolution, cooperations, and patience. So okay. So I'll read you the text, okay? From my Bible, my modern witchcraft of Book of Tarot. Okay. Temperance indicates a time of inner growth and outer harmony. You are learning to temper your ego needs with the needs of the spirit within. I don't read reverse. Reverse to me is not the opposite what the card means. Reverse to me means that it's the meaning of the card, but it's not yet fleshed out. So even if it's reversed, it's just a mild version of the card, in my opinion. I don't read reverse. I don't like to read reverse because I don't like negativity. So you are learning to temper your ego needs with the needs of the spirits within. With patience, you can blend disparate elements of yourself and your world into a harmonious whole. So if you get Temperance for a card of the day, you will have a very, very moderate. It's not going to be an amazing day. It's going to be a very moderate, very harmonious, very easygoing day. Alright? So My Japanese is not as good as that, Keiko-san. There's so many kanji that I can't read. Zubon kado. I need to translate that. But yeah, Severy, you're now tied down. Your Eight of Swords, you're now tied down with that house now. You forever, you can't. It that's no. She had Eight of Swords, which looks absolutely terrible because it's a lady who is like bound and who is bound and surrounded by 8 swords. It looks absolutely shit, right? No, it's okay, Keiko-san. It's okay. I'll just Google translate it. No problem. So Severy had like a card, 8 of Swords, which is like a girl who is bound and also blindfolded and surrounded by swords. But the way, but her she didn't ask for card of the day. If that is her card of her day, she will have a terrible shit day, right? But because it was a question tarot session, Severy asked if she could get the house from the housing lottery, and because the person was bound and and blindfolded and surrounded by sword, my interpretation it was that she will get the house because she will never be able to unsub from the game ever again. And apparently when it was true, she's Samurai will never leave the game ever again. Oh man. Okay. All right, and then it was Chocobo who wants a poem. Okay, Chocobo, let me get a book of poem. I'll get Edward Thomas this time. Chocobo, I mean Cardia in game. You can choose from page 9 to page 95. 9 to 95. I really enjoy the after reading session like this. It's so much fun. You want 19? Okay. Also, by the way, thank you for the sub and also the gifted sub. You are awesome. Okay. 19. Okay. The title of the poem is If I Should Ever by Chance by Edward Thomas. If I should ever by chance grow rich, I'll buy Codham, Cochridden, and Childerditch, roses.
Have you ever had a dream that you could don't do skid you don't do skid you want don't do skid.
And this is what Keiko did to her. Alright, I'll see you on Thursday, Wine. Thank you. Okay, it's okay, I'll read again. Oh, okay, Exia wants a poem too. I want a love quote too. It's the best. Oh my god. Okay. Okay, back to Kadia's poem. If I should ever have, if I should ever by chance, by Edward Thomas. If I should ever by chance grow rich, I'll buy cotton, cockridden, childerditch, roses, pergo, and lap water, and let them all to my elder daughter. The rent I shall ask of her will be only each year's first violets, white and lonely, the first primroses and orchises. She must find them before I do, that is. But if she finds a blossom on first, without rent, they shall all forever be hers. Whenever I am sufficiently rich, cotton, cockridden, childerditch, roses, pergo, and lap water, I shall give them all to my elder daughter. That is the poem that Karya picked up. Poems are hard to interpret. That one is like so vague. 小曲 Luna? What? Where did that come from? Okay, for the love quote, you can choose from page 10 to page 128. Exia. Exia. Page 10 to 128. You can choose between page 10 to 128. '84. I feel like you have chosen '84 before somehow. Something. Are you born in 1984 or something? Oh, I have read '84 before, but there is another quote right below it, so I'm gonna read the one below it. There's sometimes there are like two quotes in a single page, so I'm gonna read the one below it. Okay, so this is a love on quote by Paulo Coelho to Exia. When everything has been told and retold countless times, when the places I have visited, the things I have experienced, the steps I have taken because of her, are all transformed into distant memories, nothing will remain but pure love. And that is how we are ending today's stream for Noodibles. Thank you once again, everyone, for being here with me on this beautiful day, on this amazing day. Thank you for being a part of this little community. Thank you for accepting me, even though I do really boring content like reading books. Thank you for all the subs. Thank you for all the gift subs. Thank you for the follows. Please follow me on Twitter to find out more when I go live. I also do Hello Melanges. I also do raiding content, and I play Borderlands every Friday with my friends, with my boys. Um, uh, it's a lot of fun. If you want to get a taste of what it looks like when I play Borderlands, please go and watch the Borderlands VOD in my channel. You might like it. I don't know. And I also do raiding contents later. When we are doing re-clears, I will be streaming that as well. Probably. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if today or tomorrow. We'll see. Okay. And also thank you so much for being here in game and also in my chat. Atelier. What is Atelier? Is it a mobile game or something? I think, yeah. I don't play a lot of games. Like, usually when I play other games, it's because other people tell me to play those games. My friends are always asking me to play Phasmophobia because they like to watch me go through pain and screams. Yeah, so you'll see how it goes. Anyway, follow me on Twitch. Check my stream schedule for my next Noodible, which is going to be on this coming Thursday, 11 a.m. GMT plus 8 as usual. Follow me on Twitter because I always send a tweet whenever I go live. And I also post really cool and awesome stuff sometimes. I don't know. I think I'm cool. You know, the only Japanese game that's like, I know it doesn't make sense, right, Keiko? But the other day, my friend was talking about DS games, and the first thing that came out in my mind is Tokimeki Memorial. I think in the second edition of Tokimeki Memorial that I played. So stupid. Fucking teenage girl stuff. But anyway, yes, follow me on Twitch. Follow retweet my stream or share my Twitch channel with your friends who are interested in Noodibles, interested in literature, interested in listening to people read while they are working or studying, introduced to people who are interested in watching me raid and scream. I can give you an example of what my awesome raiding scream is. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to turn it on. Okay. Or maybe someone can claim it. I'll give it to you all for free this time. Listen to me when... Okay. Imagine I have this red face on. Alright? Imagine. Just imagine, okay? Just imagine I look like this. And then you hear this. And that is how I raid. So, if you are interested in watching that kind of content when I raid, tell your friends about it. It's a combination of unintentional moaning, guttural scream, and table banging. So, hell yeah! that's a taste that that's the taste for you to experience my rating content, basically. But anyways, I'm really hungry. I think you guys are tired as well of me talking non-stop, but thank you so much for joining Noodibles this week. I'll see you on Thursday. And before I end my stream, I'm going to go with this. Oh no, I can't, because Keiko already claimed it. So I'm going to give you another of my super awesome I'm gonna end my stream with this. Before I go, once again, thank you. Thank you. And I bid you goodbye with this awesome redemption.
先輩、アリエ、お願いします。
And have a good day!